What's up everyone, Alex here. The other day, I saw someone I follow share some of the cosplays they've done that started with every letter of the alphabet. That got me thinking, is it possible to do that with JRPGs? And as if that wasn't hard enough, I reached out to 25 other YouTubers to talk about one of their favorite games that started with the letter that they chose. Ambitious, you bet. Every single one of these folks is awesome in their own right, and you might be surprised to know that some fan-favorite franchises didn't get mentioned here. We've got a ton of JRPGs to cover, so here's a JRPG for every letter of the alphabet, starting with...
Hi there everybody, this is David from the channel David Vink, and thank you so much Alex for having me on. RPGs A to Z. Well, it just so happens that I've got a great RPG series in store for y'all, and that is the Atelier Iris Trilogy over on the PS2. These 3 games were actually my first introduction to the long-running Atelier series. I mean, after all, they were the first Atelier games ever released here in America. And as many of you out there may know, I am not a huge fan of crafting in RPGs, and I hate time limits too. All that just stresses me out. And I can think of nothing more boring than sitting around a pot for hours just trying to craft some random item the game tells me that I need. But these games are different. All 3 of them are super cute turn-based RPGs where you go off exploring into the world, find the mana spirits, and have party members join up with you to kick some baddie ass. The first one's pretty short and sweet, lasting about 10 or so hours. The second one is neat though, because it's split into a dual scenario system. And the third game is the culmination of the trilogy, and it allows you to take on guild quests to explore various altar worlds via magical gates. All of the characters are incredibly charming, the story is just chock full of humor, and it never takes itself too seriously, and the music is just whimsical. I really do think that y'all will thoroughly enjoy all of these games. Thank you so much Alex for having me on, and I do hope to see you over on my channel David Vink in the future. Have a good day everybody.
What's up y'all, it's your girl Lady Pelvic. I chose the letter B for best, also known as Breath of Fire 3. Playing Breath of Fire 3 made playing Breath of Fire 1 and 2 worth it, cause let me tell you, I'm not a fan of those games. But Breath of Fire 3 is a magnificent love letter to its predecessors, and we're given this tight-knit cast that gets separated and goes on different journeys. And it's our hero that brings some of them back to their senses. There's phenomenal foreshadowing, a worthwhile child arc, and seeing our cast grow up, and Gar is one of my favorite RPG characters of all time, a gargoyle who is staunchly bigoted, but sees firsthand how his blind hatred affects the world, and seeing him meet those who he was wired to blindly hate, and seeing that shift. And the main villain of this game, one of the best villains of all time, not because of their brute strength, but because of their warped idea of protection. And I didn't even touch on, I don't know, everything else. Speeding through the expressive pixel artistry, simple but enjoyable turn-based combat, experimentation through dragon splicing is the most fun ever, and jazzy bomb-ass music. In short, play Breath of Fire 3. It's the best game, bomb music, and most importantly, big booty boulders.
What's up everybody, my name is Blitz. Thank you so much to Alex on Backlog Battle for having me on here. I make Final Fantasy VII videos on YouTube and various other games as well. And of course, I love RPGs. Now my choice at the letter C could not be a better one. Quite possibly, well, most possibly, the greatest RPG of all time, Chrono Trigger. We've got an RPG with the masterful music of Squaresoft, the father of Final Fantasy, the art style of Dragon Ball, and Dragon Quest's DNA built into it. You can't get a better title than this. And as a huge Dragon Ball fan myself, I remember seeing this game at a friend's house and being in shock that Trunks went Super Saiyan 4 and had his own RPG. Alright, let me stop. I'm probably not the only one that thought that though. The camaraderie with the characters, the game's story, and the unique way Chrono Trigger utilizes time travel as a game mechanic blew me away. Just to give you an example, there is a quest that requires you to regrow an entire forest, which would take centuries. Well, we get to go back in time to 12,000 BC to save a seed, then go forward in time to 600 AD to kill monsters in the forest place so the soil can regrow it, and having a party member who can live forever stay back and help them continue to grow said forest, which requires centuries. Then go forward in time to 1000 AD 400 years later to pick them back up and see it be done and fully grown. It's really a mind-blowing thing to witness and do. Just amazing use of time travel to complete objectives. This is just one example, but Chrono Trigger has tons of these, and I don't want to spoil them for you guys, and you should really check it out for yourself. The combat system as well offers so much to love too, with the team combos known as dual and triple techs, which brings your team together to deal massive damage, and there are a bunch of different combinations too, depending on which team composition you currently have. And these attacks also deal damage to single or multiple enemies. Chrono Trigger is definitely one of my favorite RPGs of all time, and if you somehow have not played this yet, you definitely will not regret it should you pick it up. It'll be absolutely one of the best decisions you make in your life should you sit down to lose yourself in this amazing RPG.
What's going on, everyone? This is Taylor from The Gaming Shelf, and thanks, Alex, for having me on to talk about a JRPG that starts with the letter D that I don't think gets nearly the love it deserves, and also has a sequel coming out in 2024, and that is Dark Deity. Now, Dark Deity is an indie strategy JRPG, and it's obviously very inspired by the Game Boy Advanced era Fire Emblem games. And what I love about this game and why I think it's so underrated and why I want more people to play it is the actual design of the maps. I think strategy JRPGs in recent years have totally forgotten the art and the craft of designing interesting levels, and they've really focused on the story, maybe the relationship aspects, and the actual maps themselves aren't that interesting. But that's what I love about Dark Deity. Each map has an interesting goal to it. The layout is really different. You have to really think and really strategize. I just remember I was on the edge of my seat with every single level, whether it was trying to break characters out of jail or just trying to survive an onslaught of enemies that seemed to never stop coming. I just loved every single battle in this game all the way through to the end. It also has really cool character progression with the way characters can change classes and they branch off in different ways, and even the way the game deals with gear. You only have 4 weapons and you don't change them in and out, but instead they each have a specific purpose, whether it be pure damage, hit percentage, or critical hits, and you level those up, and that's pretty much it. You don't have to deal with swapping out weapons, so it just really streamlines the whole process, which I loved. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it's probably somewhere between 15 and 20 hours, and for me these days that is the perfect sweet spot. Now, it originally only launched on PC, but it also is now available on Nintendo Switch. A lot of people were asking for that, and if you enjoy it, Dark Deity has a sequel coming out this year in 2024, so it's perfect for anyone that wants to hop right into the sequel. Thanks as always, Alex, for having me on to talk about another great JRPG, and I hope to see you guys over on my channel, The Gaming Shelf.
Hey guys, Upper Nimbus here. Now my choice for a JRPG from A to Z is the letter E's Ever Oasis. The story of Ever Oasis takes place in the world of Vystrata, a gigantic desert with its last oasis behaving as the game's central hub area. You as the player take on the role as Tethu, a young seedling whose mission is to assist the water spirit Esna in helping to rebuild the oasis itself. The game contains a mix of real-time action combat along with elements of town management and aspects of dungeon crawling. Tethu will embark across the lands of Vystrata in search of new residents for Esna's oasis, with diverse races ranging from the Circa, Lagora, and Drauk as examples. In Ever Oasis, you must complete various missions and quests in order to build the oasis and watch it prosper and flourish. You can form together a party of 3 characters in total, battling enemies in the overworld which are possessed by chaos, the main antagonistic force within the game. You can harvest the loot drops after defeating an enemy, and also collect and gather resources found littered throughout the lands of Vystrata, using these materials to restock bloom booths back in the oasis, which in turn offer up duodems, the game's main currency. Now you might be wondering, how could the setting of only a desert be interesting? Well, surprisingly enough, the world of Vystrata is fairly diverse for its restricted theming. You'll find yourself venturing through places like rolling sand dunes, ascending rocky cliffsides, and even diving deep within dark and treacherous caverns. Ever Oasis is a beautiful gem of a JRPG which many overlooked as the game released near the end of the Nintendo 3DS's life cycle. It's considered to be a spiritual successor to the Mana series, and absolutely deserves a second chance on the Nintendo Switch, but who knows if that will ever happen. Alex from Backlog Battle, thank you once again for having me on this collaboration. I look forward to everybody else's choice within this video. So until the next time everybody, Upper Nimbus is signing off.
Hey, this is Emily from Orbitology, and one of my favorite JRPGs of all time is the one that actually introduced me to the strategy tactical subgenre, and that is Fire Emblem Awakening. Fire Emblem Awakening is often cited as the title that saved the franchise on the Nintendo 3DS. It revamped the classic Fire Emblem formula by not only introducing a casual mode to incentivize new players, such as myself, to give the game a try, but it also introduced support options, which was a fun way to see the different characters interact and also make the players feel a bit more invested in each of them. Now, the premise of Awakening is definitely on the weird side, where they incorporate some time travel elements so that children of the various characters can travel to the past to fight alongside their parents. But I have just so many fond memories of replaying Fire Emblem Awakening multiple times, which is something I don't often do with JRPGs, and loving all the various interactions with my favorite characters such as Lucina, Chrom, and Cordelia. And I think Fire Emblem Awakening has really put its foothold as not only the savior of the franchise, but also just a fun and delightful entry to play.
Hi everyone, Miss Mandia here. Thank you, Alex, for inviting me to take part in this epic video. So the JRPG that starts with G that I have the honor of sharing with you today is none other than Grandia 2. Grandia 2 is a turn-based RPG that first released on the Dreamcast and has since been remastered for modern platforms. In my opinion, it's one of the most well-rounded and memorable JRPGs out there that honestly gets overlooked way too often. It tells the story of a geohound named Ryudo, who has been hired by the Church of Granis to act as a bodyguard for one of their songstresses. She's been afflicted with a strange possession that seems to have marked the second coming of Valmar, a great evil that was sealed away by Granis thousands of years ago. As the situation develops, Ryudo finds himself not only having to face the impending resurrection of Valmar, but also the demons of his past. Grandia 2 is often praised for its dynamic battle system, which uses an interactive turn gauge as a way of adding more flavor to the traditional turn-based system. The speed at which characters move along each phase of the gauge is influenced by the types of actions you select. You can take advantage of this by timing the right kinds of moves to counter oncoming attacks, and sometimes even cancel them completely. But in my opinion, what makes Grandia 2 truly stand out is its fantastic cast of characters. Throughout the game, they learn a lot from one another, and I think it's really beautiful to see that reflected in the story. The way everyone works together, despite their different approaches to life, is what gives Grandia 2 its heart. On top of all this, it's got a phenomenal voice cast, fantastic pacing, and a one-of-a-kind soundtrack by Noriyuki Iwadare. At the end of the day, Grandia 2 is an all-round fantastic game that teaches us how important it is to challenge the status quo and fight for true justice. And that's why it's my personal favorite JRPG.
Hey friends, it's Brandon from Just the Gems. Thanks to Alex for having me on to talk about what has become my #1 modern JRPG. I'm talking about Harvestella. Never before have my expectations about a game and my actual experience with a game been so far apart from each other. I expected at best that this would be a decent fantasy farming sim with great music courtesy of Jeanne, one of my all-time favorite composers. What I got instead was a story and character-rich action RPG with some of the most beautiful art design I've ever seen, with a minimal focus on farming. Oh, and great music courtesy of Jeanne, one of my all-time favorite composers. I was right about that part. Let me get the negatives out of the way right up top. The combat is a little stiff. It's not going to blow your mind in the way a game like NieR Automata might. But if it's just a little rough around the edges on the gameplay front, it's balanced out by its job system, which gives you a ton of different playstyles to choose from. These range from up-close fighters to long-distance mages to support for your team members. Most of the jobs you earn come to you from the party members you pick up along the way. And this leads me to one of Harvestella's major strengths, its characters. This cast is absolutely packed with memorable characters with gorgeous designs and frankly pretty moving stories. Each of them has their own reasons for wanting to journey with you as you work to understand the ways the world is changing due to the Seas Lights. These are the monolithic crystals that power the world's seasons. Normally, each season in this world would last 1 month, which sounds like a bummer, but then I imagine Chicago winters that are just 1 month long and it suddenly doesn't seem so bad. But anyway, something is going wrong with the Seas Lights and quietus is starting to occur between each season. Quietus is this mysterious period where no one can travel outside of their homes for fear of contracting a horrible and fatal disease. And on top of that, crops wither, which definitely has a detrimental impact on farmers like your character. Speaking of farming, if you like farming in games, you'll like the farming here. If you're not a big fan of farm work, then I have good news. The required farming is minimal. It basically functions as a way for you to create healing items along with some other crafting goals. It's unobtrusive and it won't get in the way of you enjoying the rest that this game has to offer. It's a remarkable achievement, and I can only hope Square Enix sees fit to give us more in the future.
Hey everybody, Super Derek here for letter I today to talk about Illusion of Gaia, also known as Illusion of Time in PAL territories. It's one of the greatest action RPGs of all time, made by one of the most legendary developers of the 90s, Quintet. Illusion of Gaia is incredibly unique for an action RPG of the era, featuring real-world locations scattered across the globe from the Inca ruins to the Nazca Lines, the pyramids of Egypt, and beyond. Exploring the world felt like going on an extravagant vacation that, in turn, filled the real world with wonder. The game's visuals and music are an absolute treat, showcasing some of the absolute greatest earworms of the era that are sure to get stuck in your head, and some of the smoothest combat animations of any action RPG on the platform. The game has large detailed sprites and the colors are incredibly vibrant, the controls are responsive and the attack movesets are satisfying, and the loop of killing all enemies in a room to gain stat boosts is also pretty addicting and satisfying. The story of the game follows Will, a young boy with psychic powers who embarks on a journey to uncover the mysteries of ancient ruins and save the world from a looming catastrophe. Will's journey is intertwined with his search for his missing parents and the discovery of his own destiny in a world brimming with secrets and hidden powers. Will possesses a wide array of skills and psychic powers to help him take out waves of foes, including the ability to transform into the powerful avatar of Freed in the Night, which multiplies his powers. It's just plain fun no matter how you slice it, and my nostalgia for this little title gives it a solid place in my heart.
Hello everyone, it's Just History Guy, and I want to give a huge thanks to Backlog Battle for having me on to talk about a wonderful little JRPG called Jeanne d'Arc. Level 5 did something extraordinary here and took the historical story of Jeanne d'Arc and turned it into a fantastic fantasy-style tactical JRPG filled with Studio Ghibli-like anime cutscenes. It just feels like a classic anime. The story follows a young girl who becomes a legendary figure during the historic 100 Years' War, while adding some ancient evils that were sealed away and now control Child King Henry VI. I mean, hey, JRPG. The game has fantastic depth and replayability, with solid gameplay mechanics and amazing strategic battles, providing good character progression. The game encourages experimentation with character classes and skills, which provides great replay value on a second playthrough with some decent secrets to find. The game also still looks beautiful today, even as a PSP game from 2007. And, as I said earlier, has some amazing animated cutscenes that feel like a Studio Ghibli film. Playing this game, you can see how Level 5 would later develop the Ni no Kuni games. This is just a classic that should not be missed. And with that, thank you again for having me on, and I'm Just History Guy.
Hi everyone, this is Mandy from Mandy Lee Plays, and I want to give a big thank you to Alex for featuring me in this collab. Now, I want to choose the letter K because that allows me to talk about my second favorite RPG of all time, and that is Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, you're probably saying, why Kingdom Hearts 2 and why not Kingdom Hearts 1? I mean, the first game started this whole rabbit hole of a series in the first place, but here's my answer. Everything about Kingdom Hearts 2 blows the original game out of the water. It's one of those rare instances where the sequel is way better than the original. And the first thing you do notice is the improved combat. Controlling Zora in this game compared to Kingdom Hearts 1 is like night and day. The combat system has been refined, featuring a more fluid and dynamic arsenal of flying high attacks and flashy combos. I love it when games get flashy. I don't know, I just like flashy attacks. It keeps me really entertained in some weird way. And there's also one big game mechanic that is a game changer, and that is the drive system, which not only gives Zora some new clothes, but it also unlocks a new set of combos exclusive to that form, adding a layer of depth to the combat to make it feel much more satisfying. But besides the combat, the story has also been improved. Now, Kingdom Hearts games are notorious for their convoluted story, but I feel like Kingdom Hearts 2 really struck that balance between making it digestible so people understand, and also setting up the groundwork for future Kingdom Hearts games. Now, one of my favorite parts of Kingdom Hearts 2 that will be in my mind for a long time is the intro. Having us start with the character that's not Zora really gives the story more time to flesh out its characters, especially Roxas. He's a fan favorite and one of my favorite characters as well. And pair that with the diverse cast of characters from Disney to Final Fantasy makes the overall experience a joy, and it gets me so nostalgic, like I kind of want to play Kingdom Hearts 2 now. Overall, I love Kingdom Hearts 2 and I'm glad that this game got me started with my love for RPGs and my love for the Kingdom Hearts series as a whole.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tark's Gauntlet here to get that W by taking that L. L, that is for Legend of Dragoon, the on PlayStation 1. Divisive at release and for time immemorial, Legend of Dragoon has always been a favorite game of mine. Utilizing a revolutionary approach to turn-based combat with real-time mechanics, Sony and Japan Studio created the incredible Addition system, a mechanic that allows players to learn and perform ever-evolving high-intensity combos synced to on-screen prompts, not all too unlike a rhythm game, thus marrying technical skill and strategy with player proficiency. Legend of Dragoon was also a stunner on the PlayStation 1, and thanks to its pre-rendered backgrounds, still has some incredible and unique visuals that hold up rather well today, at least for old folks like me. The locations are downright awe-inspiring, featuring creative high fantasy art direction supported by a stunning soundtrack unlike anything else JRPGs were offering at the time. This game also gave me my love for world building and lore. The Legend of Dragoon's backstory has enough meat on its bones that fans have been begging for a prequel game for ages. A prequel set in the times we only ever heard about and experienced briefly in some of the game's cutting-edge CGI cutscenes. This game was a bit of an awakening for me growing up, helping me realize what I really gravitate to in a turn-based RPG, and what kind of adventure and world sparks my imagination and holds my interest. So I will always champion it as an RPG that is criminally underrated, but also maybe overrated by people like me, who maybe feel it's been slighted a bit over the years.
What's up everyone, I'm Luca from Fate2 Gaming, and one of my favorite JRPGs is Monster Hunter Stories 2. This often overlooked spin-off of the Monster Hunter series is probably the best Pokemon-inspired game ever. The story is about your self-created rider who accidentally comes into the hands of a mysterious and potentially evil monster egg. While the story is lighthearted for the most part, it also touches on themes like prejudices, animal exploitation, and the importance of nature. I was totally surprised by how engaging the story actually is, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Of course, the gameplay also has a lot to offer. You can enter procedurally generated monster dens and steal the monster's egg, which actually isn't very nice, but then you take care of the cute baby monsters. Well, only to force them into brutal battles. Yeah, I'm sure they want this too. Collecting eggs and monsters with the best stats and skills is extremely addictive though, and the combat itself is equally fun. Combat is turn-based and essentially works with a rock-paper-scissors system. Swapping out monsters to react to dangerous situations or maximize damage requires some strategic thinking. The fact that some elements of the main Monster Hunter series made it into the spin-off makes it even better. Like for example, attacking a monster's leg will eventually make it topple over, or hitting a Kuluyaku with a flash bomb will make it drop its beloved stone. These fantastic mechanics are what makes this one of my favorite modern turn-based combat systems. Monster Hunter Stories 2 is pretty underrated in my opinion, and one of my favorite JRPGs ever. I hope I was able to inspire some of you to check out this brilliant game. Thanks so much for having me, Alex. I can't wait to see what everybody else came up with. Alright, have a great day, and until next time.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, let's all play JRPGs. Hello, John aka Chicken Fillets here, and thank you to Alex for having me on this collaboration for the A to Z of JRPGs, and my letter is the letter N, and you know what the letter N stands for. Yes, it's NieR Automata. This critically acclaimed action JRPG from Platinum Games and Square Enix is definitely a JRPG that you should play. Now in this fast-paced action JRPG we follow the stories of 3 androids known as 2B, 9S and A2. Set in the desolate, far distant future, our protagonists will hack and slash their way through robot kind. This JRPG is definitely the full package. It has slick action-based combat, it has a memorable story which will stick with you for all time, it has a beautiful soundtrack, and although that this world is desolate, it is still gorgeous. And no word of a lie, you will become emotionally attached to the characters. This is how great 2B, 9S and A2 really are to this game. Now on a personal recommendation for NieR Automata, I completed this for the first time in full on the Nintendo Switch back in 2023, and it honestly is now one of my top 5 JRPGs, if not games, of all time. That is how good NieR Automata is. Now, if you're ready to join the fight with Yorha, this game is available on the PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, PC, and Xbox. Thank you once again to Alex from Backlog Battle for having me on today. This is John, aka Chicken Fillets, and glory to mankind.
Hey everyone, what up? Mad Kaiser here, and thank you Alex for allowing me to be here. It was a massive pleasure. With that said, one of my favorite JRPGs that starts with the letter O would have to be Octopath Traveler 2. Now this game I've played recently, and oh my god, was I absolutely mesmerized by it. Now full disclosure, I haven't played the original game as I heard mixed feelings about that, so when I heard that this game is way better and that you can just jump straight into this one, I immediately had to find out what the hype was all about, and honestly, it is absolutely worth said hype. Everything from the just wonderful HD 2D graphics that might be the best that Team Asano has cooked. It is so beautifully gorgeous to the point that I feel like I'm getting throwbacks to the absolute beauty of games like say Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger. It is just absolutely gorgeous. Not only that, but the storytelling, especially for the individual stories I experienced, are just so wonderfully told and just so captivating, with my favorite being Thrones, of course, and the cast themselves are absolutely wonderful, with having just wonderful voice acting. Not only that, but the combat is absolutely engaging, one of the best turn-based combats I've ever experienced in a JRPG, and of course I can't gush about Octopath 2 without mentioning the wonderful soundtrack by Yasunori Nishiki. He did an absolute wonderful job throughout the whole game. Everything from the wonderful main menu theme to the battle theme to the town themes, it's just absolutely wonderful and just an absolute banger of experience. It is just that wonderful. So if you haven't played this game, definitely give it a go. It is definitely one of the best JRPGs from Square Enix in recent years. It is just that phenomenal. With that said, thank you guys so much for having me here, especially to you Alex. And with that said, Mad Kaiser out.
Hello Backlog Battle friends, it's Miss Bubbles, and I'm choosing Pokemon Arceus, which kinda surprised me because I always said that the Pokemon games intimidate me, even though I own many of them. Every time I try to get into one, I get overwhelmed by all the elements, but Arceus was a welcoming one for people like myself who love an open world RPG but still appreciate guidance through the missions you are given. The open world is gorgeous to explore, and keep in mind it is semi-open world, which is still great if an open world approach turns you away from games, and you're gonna have different ways to traverse it with the help of the Pokemon you catch. Add to that, figuring out the right way to approach Pokemon is always fun and keeps you on your toes. Some of them will be scared easily and will run away if they spot you, while others are more feisty and would want to fight you, so you gotta be strategic about how you approach things. The combat also takes a strategic approach, so every decision you make can change the tide of battle, either letting you beat a Pokemon or get the floor wiped with your butt. And if you're a completionist, you have a Pokedex to fill in, so you're not going to catch each Pokemon once. Instead, you're gonna have to catch them several times to fill it in. You can also gather resources and craft to make your journey a bit more forgiving, and as someone who adores looking for items and crafting in games, I found myself occupied with that aspect, which was a bonus for me. I'm really happy that I finally got to experience a Pokemon game, even if this one is not what you typically experience as a longtime fan, and at the end of the day, I'm new to the franchise, so this was perfect. Pokemon Arceus is one of my favorite JRPGs that I recommend you try. Thank you Alex for having me, and until next time, stay bubbly.
Hey everybody, Eric here. Thank you so much for having me on today, and I'm excited to continue the alphabetical list of JRPGs with the letter Q, and it's going to be the game that I think is the Nickelback of JRPGs. Everybody loves to hate it. That's right, Quest 64. Released in 1998 for the N64 and developed by Imagineer and published by THQ, Quest 64 is one of the few RPGs available on the N64. In the game, you play as Brian, a young mage on a quest to find his missing father and recover the L-Tale book, which, if misused, it has magical, powerful spells that can destroy the world and bring about great danger. Throughout the game, players explore various landscapes, battle monsters in turn-based combat, and solve puzzles in the quest to uncover the mystery behind Brian's father and prevent the misuse of the L-Tale book. Now, Quest 64, like I said, is one of those games that people love to hate. Here's what I like about it. I like the magic system. Throughout the world, you'll find what are called spirits, and with these spirits you can individually level one of your 4 elements. Now the downside to that is if you don't level a specific element that, for example, the upcoming boss is weak to, you're pretty much screwed and almost kind of have to restart your game. Trust me, I know from experience. It's not the best looking game, it doesn't have the deepest story, and I think the biggest disservice that anybody can do to Quest 64 is compare it to anything else, especially considering this game was released in like the golden age of PlayStation 1 JRPGs. And you know, it's not on a PlayStation 1, but don't compare it to anything else. I think it's a unique, quirky, very clunky, but almost kind of weirdly, strangely lovable game. And that's actually why I like Quest 64. It's not perfect by any means, but you know what? I have a very strange nostalgic spot in my heart for Quest 64, so give it a shot. Honestly, don't compare it to anything else, just try it. It's not that bad. So anyway, there's your letter Q, Quest 64. Thank you so much for having me on today. On to the next one.
Yo, YouTube, what is good, bruv gang, what is good, and we are back with another collaboration video. A massive shout out and thank you to Alex for having me part of this awesome idea for a collaboration. So if this is the first time any of you guys have heard of me, I go by the Big Bruv or Darren, whichever works for you. And as you can tell from my very British accent, I'm a UK based JRPG content creator sharing everything from top 10 lists to reviews to pick up videos and so much more. So be sure to check me out if you like what you're hearing. So enough chit chat and let's get straight into my favorite JRPG that starts with the letter R. Now when it came to thinking about my favorite JRPG that started with the letter R, honestly only one game came to mind immediately. Whenever there are trends going around on Twitter about 4 underrated JRPGs people need to play or favorite JRPG hidden gems, the one game that always sticks out to me is Radiant Historia. Now I personally only played the original Nintendo DS version of Radiant Historia as opposed to the 3DS version, but man oh man is this game amazing. One thing I'm a sucker for is a sprite based art style, and for the time of the DS where games like Dragon Quest V were releasing, for example, a few years prior, I was personally in a phase where I just wanted to see more and more sprite based art style games. The art style and design of each character sprite in Radiant Historia were absolutely beautiful, and this was complemented so eloquently in the dark war-torn continent of Valkyria. Now the story in Radiant Historia is something I feel does not get enough credit and is honestly a massive reason why I always recommend this game. Going into the game originally, I honestly didn't know what to expect, but its dark setting and introducing you to one of my favourite main protagonists in stock, the story right from minute 1 had me hooked in. Now without spoiling too much of the story, the basic premise of the story follows main protagonist Stock, an espionage agent from Arceus who is sent on a mission with mercenaries Rainier and Marco to escort a spy back to Arceus' capital. Stock encounters a series of events where things take a turn for the worse on the mission. Stock is then whisked away to a realm called Historia which is devoid from time, and given a magical book called the White Chronicle which allows him to alter events. So for me personally, Radiant Historia is a game that to this day I will never stop recommending. It still remains one of my favourite Nintendo DS JRPGs, and honestly, as mentioned, is one of the most underrated JRPGs I feel everyone needs to play.
Hellfire RPGs here. Thanks for having me, Alex. For the letter S, I'm going to select the single sweetest, sexiest, most sublimely scintillating and sensationally satisfying game of all time. It is seriously sick, so don't skip the second submission from the smoothest series that stands above the rest. Obviously, I'm talking about Suikoden 2, the best entry from what is perhaps my favourite video game series of all time. So, what's it all about? Suikoden 2 centers around the invasion of the city-states of Joustin by the Kingdom of Highland. The main character gets caught up in this war and eventually builds up and leads his own army capable of putting an end to the war. This story is sensational, with plenty of twists and turns and truly powerful, emotionally driven scenes. There are some moments which stand up as some of my favourite video game moments ever, such as the epic Luca Blight fight. If you've played the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. But one of the major reasons why I love this game so much is because of its lore and world building. All of the main Suikoden games are set in the same world, meaning that you'll constantly be learning more and more as you progress through the series. This also means that certain characters characters will appear in multiple games, which has some massive payoffs. But story aside, Suikoden also has plenty of standout mechanics, from massive war battles to building up your HQ by recruiting over 100 characters around the world. There are so many elements that make this series so great, and this is especially demonstrated in Suikoden 2. While this series may be lost in the sands of time, we will be getting a HD remaster of Suikoden 1 and 2 hopefully this year, so if you haven't had a chance to play this amazing game yet, soon you will.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Santos. I make analysis videos on my own channel, while occasionally writing scripts with Alex on his channel. Tales of the Abyss is not just my favorite Tales game, it's one of my favorite games of all time. Reflecting on my initial playthrough when the game released back in 2005, it's astounding to me that it continues to reverberate in my mind to this very day. The Tales series is typically known for its action-based combat and its consistently endearing casts of misfits, but the plots of these games is a bit more variable in terms of quality. This is partly why Tales of the Abyss stands out. It not only has fun combat and a great cast, but one of the absolute best stories of any JRPG that I've played. While many games in the genre tend to dabble in themes of destiny and fate, few tackle the subject with the nuance of Abyss. More than just having a chosen one meant to save the world, the concept of fate itself is taken to an extreme, as it's an entire world shackled by what must happen. While the thematic depth is what elevates this title, what's great is that it doesn't forget what lies at the core of the series. While the combat isn't as sophisticated as more modern entries, the old format still largely holds up and retains a decent amount of depth. The cast in this game is one of the absolute best. While the protagonist Luke does take some time to grow out of his bratty phase in the beginning, he develops into a fantastic character, partly because he is helped by the rest of the cast around him, who are all brimming with personality. T is for Tales of the Abyss, because for my money, it's the best Tales game and one of the best JRPGs ever made.
Hey guys, Nishquick here from the channel Nishquick Pops, and a big, huge thank you to Alex from Backlog Battle for having me on this awesome collab. So, what comes after T? That is U, and U is for Undertale. Undertale is the witty, clever, funny, and very insightful RPG developed by none other than Toby Fox, and that is entirely developed by Toby Fox. That means written, directed, developed, designed, and even composed by the mastermind himself, Toby Fox. In this game, you play as a human who falls into the underground and has to find their way back up, and you meet some very interesting monsters along the way, some formidable and some friendly, and of course you learn about the lore of this underground area and these monsters along the way. The combat is not only traditionally turn-based, but it also incorporates some bullet hell mechanics and some negotiation elements depending on which route you're trying to take in the game. And some of you guys might ask, well, Nishquick, is Undertale really a traditional JRPG? Well, in its traditional sense, maybe not really, but when you look at it, Toby Fox has really incorporated a lot of elements from a lot of classic JRPGs like Earthbound, some classic Falcom games, and even some musical motifs from iconic songs like Megalomania and Live Alive, which turns into the iconic Megalovania in Undertale. So check out Undertale if you enjoy turn-based RPGs, if you enjoy really witty and unique and clever dialogue, if you enjoy lore, then Undertale is a perfect game for you. It's a nice, cozy, just chill game. Thank you so much, Alex, for having me on this collab. I really appreciate it. Now, on to the next letter in the alphabet. Let's see who's got V.
Hi guys, TKN here, and thanks to Alex once again for letting me take a part in this collab. Now I chose the letter V, purely because I wanted to gush about a tactical RPG that is sadly so often forgotten, and what I'm referring to is the original Valkyria Chronicles. Influenced by the events of World War II, this game is focused around the journey of Welkin Gunther and Alicia Melchiot as they're forced to defend their home of Brule after the Eastern Empire crosses the Gallian border to lay claim to their abundant resources of Ragnite, a mineral that is integral to the economic stability of countries on the continent. What follows are a series of battles to win back peace and security for their country. Initially, Valkyria Chronicles offers a very gratifying and deep tactical system from the get-go. Gameplay sees the player take two views to combat, a bird's eye command mode and an on-the-ground action mode. Action mode allows a player to freely move the unit under active control up to a limit of action points, and also take aim at enemies to thin the ranks. You've got classes tied to each unit that specialise in certain areas of warfare, but there's still a degree of uniqueness among them as they also accrue their own traits during the course of the journey as well. In similar fashion, the environment is used very well too. Tanks can knock down walls to open up new paths, and snipers can move to rooftops for added range. Foliage offers soft cover to reduce the chance of being spotted, and Welkin himself as commander can issue various orders for things such as artillery strikes. Moving away from the gameplay though, it has some of the most beautiful artwork of the time thanks to the engine used by Sega called Canvas, which allowed it to adopt this watercolour approach, a style that was intended as a natural evolution of Skies of Arcadia and Sakura Wars by producer Ryutaro Nonaka, and was influenced by a long-running anime series called World Masterpiece Theatre. The development team also aimed to create a relatable and engaging cast that seamlessly flowed with the events of the war, creating a more personal and rich experience in terms of character development. It's a shame that this game is so often forgotten, as I still see it as one of the greatest triumphs in the tactical space, so I'm doing my part here and hopefully putting it back on your radar.
Hey there everyone, Craft here. Now, The World Ends With You is such an important game to me, and it's also one of my many favourites that I've only played thanks to pure happenstance. I knew of it before in passing, but my first contact with it was when me and a high school friend were borrowing and swapping games from each other over the half-term break, and I was pretty much glued to it that entire week. Whether it's the DS original or the Switch re-release, the gameplay is definitely a point of contention for many, as the touch-based combat and the act of somewhat controlling two characters at the same time is something that not everybody can resonate too well with. Not without a little work at the very least. But one thing's for sure is that with its unique combat, it's a incredibly fresh experience that you're definitely not going to find anywhere else. But ultimately, the thing that really stuck with me and made it one of my favourite JRPGs more than anything was the game's story. Its themes and message about expanding your horizons and having the agency to be the one who creates where your own personal world begins and ends really had a profound effect on me. If not immediately, then later on in my life for sure. In fact, if it weren't for Twiri, I think there would be a really good possibility that I wouldn't be making videos today. Video games are primarily played for entertainment, but The World Ends With You is a prime example of how much impact the medium can have on somebody's life. And while it is definitely aimed at a teen demographic, it is a really good argument as to why video games should be considered art.
Hello everyone, my name is Fedro from Cozy Veggie here on YouTube, and what would you do if you only had 10 years to live? That is one of the big questions asked in my favorite JRPG that came from the third installment of the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was my 22 game of the year and one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. After the events of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 takes place on Ionius, a world consisting of Bionis, from the world of Xenoblade Chronicles, and Alres, the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where the nations of Keves and Agnes are at constant war. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 takes place on Ionius, where two war nations, Keves and Agnes, are engaged in an internal war fought by soldiers with 10 years of life. The story follows Noah and his two childhood friends, Uni and Lance, who are from Keves, and Mio and her two fellow soldiers, Senna and Tyon, who are from Agnes. They gain the power of Ouroboros and decide to work together to find safety. On that journey, they discover the secret of the internal war and the true nature of their world. I absolutely loved my time with this game, and the roller coaster of emotions that I went through was worth it until the very end, which makes it one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. And thank you, Alex, for inviting me to take part in this awesome collab.
Hey everybody, it's FemTrooper, and thank you, Alex, for having me on to discuss one of my very favorite JRPGs under the letter Y, Yakuza Like a Dragon. Let's be honest here, this game kind of plays like Earthbound, which is my favorite game, so naturally, I loved this. I've been a big fan of Yakuza for a while now, and this takes everything great about the series but makes it a turn-based JRPG. Even cooler is it's a new protagonist, Ichiban, and so if you've never played the series, you can totally start here. If you have, it's just that much better. Yakuza Like a Dragon is set in modern-day Yokohama, and because the main character loves Dragon Quest so much, and I also love Dragon Quest, he sees his adventure as if he's the hero of a Dragon Quest game. Even the way the text moves on the screen, the simplistic battle system, it's very similar to Dragon Quest, and that's a good thing. This is pure JRPG goodness at its finest, and it's not some cliche medieval setting that we've seen time and time again. If you just want a solid adventure with an amazing story and phenomenal characters, then you have to play this game. I mean, this is a game that has such powerful storytelling that I shed a tear at the end. You truly fall in love with these characters and also find yourself laughing throughout the whole story. This is seriously one of the most wholesome stories I've ever experienced in gaming, and it's just a really special game. It's one of those stories that ends up becoming a favorite and sticks with you for life. Please, play this game, you won't regret it. Almost at the end now, back to you, Alex.
What's up everyone, Alex here again, and I'm taking Z because this is going to be a throwback to folks who have been subscribed to this channel for the past 6 years, and the game that I've chosen to talk about is none other than Zanki Zero Last Beginning. I remember falling in love with Zanki Zero's visual novel aesthetics, complete with a brightly colored and diverse cast of characters that made them stand out amidst the grim nature of its story. To put it simply, the inhabitants of this island are survivors of an apocalyptic event that has left them stranded here. Worse, they seem to encounter grisly deaths at every turn, only to have these deaths reversed each time. I'm not going to elaborate beyond that, so you'll just have to figure out what's going on yourself. And I wouldn't look at trailers either if you don't want to get spoiled. At its heart, Zanki Zero Last Beginning is a first-person dungeon crawler JRPG that features real-time action combat as opposed to turn-based battles. And as someone who doesn't generally like first-person dungeon crawlers, the story and characters had me playing and seeing how the story ends. It's even got a base-building mechanic that helped you survive some of the island's many perils. And when I say survive, I really mean it. It's got survival mechanics in addition to being a dungeon crawler. This game, from the team who brought you the Danganronpa games, sans Kazutaka Kodaka, is definitely one of the most unique and incredible JRPGs I've played in the past few years. And when you finally take the plunge and play this game, you might just get hooked by its mysteries and oddities. And that, my friends, is a JRPG for every single letter of the alphabet. I want to take the time to thank every single person who collaborated with me in this video, and I urge everyone to subscribe to every single one of them as they all have unique perspectives on this small niche of gaming that we all love. If you were going to make your own list of JRPGs from A to Z, what games would be in it? Post your replies in the comments below so we can talk about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.